Hi, this is freeze cracked again. I'm gonna try and beat on a rock a little bit with a hammerstone today. Might bring an antler into play if I don't completely ruin it with a hammerstone. I'm no good at abo work, but I like it. It's fun. I just haven't done enough to develop any level of skill, but we'll see what we can do. This is a piece of fairly irregular pedernales area rock, so I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but we'll see. Mess around with it. Probably won't be talking as much as I was on the copper video because I don't know as much about this stuff. There's already some great video posted on abo stuff anyway on YouTube by Marty Reeder and company, so a little freeze cracked in there. Come on, let go. Since I'm mostly a copper napper, I sort of have a perspective on the differences between the two, since I've done some of both. And there's a lot of differences. I do not believe in spending a lot of time with copper if all you really want to do is abo. That was not a bad flake. I supported that pretty well and ran it on down into there. When I take a good flake with a hammerstone, I'm always kind of happy, since I don't have the expertise with them. You go with steeper platforms, it's harder to abrade. The support is really critical. And the other thing is your tools are so variable when you do the abo stuff. I've got some kind of weird little crack thing going on in here that was just natural to the stone, or not natural, but a long time ago. It looks like there's a freeze crack or a fire crack or something in there that is kind of interesting, little weirdness. But anyway, I forgot what I was fixing to say. Guess it wasn't important. It's cooler here today than it was the other day, so sometimes that can affect my skill pretty much. That ran kind of okay. With the soft percussion on the abo stuff where you start using antler and stuff, you're braided a lot less than you do for copper. because the antler has to kind of bite the rock and rip it off. Wasn't bad. But I just find that there's really a lot of difference between the two ways of doing stuff and the way that it all feels and works and stuff. Wonder if I could do that one with an antler. I'm gonna try. Yep. You get to where when you do it a little while, you sort of get a feel for which platforms look like they would work best with what tool. Oh, I remember what I was talking about. I was talking about how variable the tools can be. I always keep my little toolkit. I keep some hard hammer stones, and then I keep some soft hammer stones and different sizes and stuff. Like this is kind of a softish quartzite type hammer stone, and this is an even softer sandstone hammer stone that I got from Rafael out of Monterrey, Mexico. But then I got some pretty smooth, hard quartzites and different sizes and everything, so I got a number of hammer stones that I use. But the stones, your tools are constantly changing. Your antler is constantly changing. You have to dress the stuff fairly often to get fresh material on it where it's stout. This thing is cracked all the way around here. I really need that off of there. Dang. Go back to a harder hammer. Sometimes your softer hammer stones won't take a flake. You got to go to a harder one. There we go. We got it off. Yeah, that's pretty funky. But it doesn't look like it's so deep in it that I can't. The problem is, of course, it forces me to favor working this side down towards the other side because that's low, and this is fairly decent looking material over here. So I really need to now try and lower all this and definitely lower all that and see what I can do to salvage the situation. But since we're just goofing around anyway, might as well, huh? So the other hits I did that I just did on camera with the antler was with Axis, and this is moose. And moose is pretty dense and tends to be one of the best working materials as far as antler goes for the soft hammer percussion. The problem for me is I always am trying to decide which tools were actually probably available to people, and which constitutes, you know, sort of a modern fudging of the process. And of course, I don't really believe that I have much insight on how people really did things in the old days anyway. This is bad looking in here. I'm gonna try and turn all this, you know, down and raise this up to come back through here. This is almost concretey looking and just doesn't look like it has a lot of structural integrity. One thing that's kind of weird about hammerstones is sometimes hammerstone use is more forgiving than copper when it comes to things like dinking on the ends and stuff. It just seems like sometimes you break less stuff when you're using hammerstones. I'm not really sure why. The other thing that's cool is when you use a smooth hammerstone, like a smooth quartzite, when you take little flakes downward, it doesn't leave the little hinges and messed up stuff on the underside as much as copper does. So sometimes if I want to just turn a thin edge cleanly and not do too much with it, I prefer using like a quartzite for that. For me, it's kind of hard to braid with rocks sometimes because they don't have as strong a grit to try and just really get some stuff off of there. Yeah, another natural crack in there that I don't prefer. Just have to keep at it and see what happens. I'm hitting very much at an inward angle to try and go kind of straight in on this end so that I don't break it, but see, I mean, I'm making some progress on it. That one did some good. Kind of feathered some stuff in. Just seems to me like with the abo stuff, you got to do things more correctly. The edges need to be set up more correctly. Everything needs to be just done right. It doesn't have the margin for error that copper has in a way. Just all opinion of mine. I don't know if I'm right. I just know what I think. Crap. Back to my rock. I tell you what, sometimes rocks will flat take a flake when nothing else will. In a way, I feel bad that I do copper work mostly because my two, I think, biggest mentors, in a way, have been abo people. But it's funny, before I got to the level that I'm currently at with being able to knap with the copper, I, would be knapping with this one guy, and he does all of his percussion work with hammerstones and antler. And so I'd be I'd have some river cobble and start trying to get into it and have a real hard cortex, and I wouldn't be in like a rounded end or something, have a real hard cortex, and I'd be hitting on it and just, you know, beating the crap out of it and not even getting into it. And he'd stop me and say, just stop, use a hammerstone. And then of course it'd be easy to get into it with a hammerstone. And after a while, that got in my brain enough to where now I have a tendency to remember if the other tools don't work, grab a hammerstone. But having said that, to a certain extent or lesser extent, solid copper over a lead-filled bopper also is harder and an advantage in attempting to get into something that's tough. That a lot of times with the Cortex, you know, once you break it, you're okay, but it's just the initial getting into it. This is a little square diamond. Those areas, you got to be careful with them because you try to attack them on the ends. Well, when you got a tool that's big and round like this, it doesn't work too good sometimes. It might be better to try and go at it with a hammerstone on the corners. See if I can flake little flakes off of it, because it's real easy to accidentally hit too high on those and break your piece. Well, I mean, it's improving. That's still, I haven't really been doing anything with, because I've been trying to flatten this all out and smooth it. When I've been hitting with copper and I start trying to hit with antler, I have trouble remembering how hard to hit, because the antler really got to hit quite a bit harder. Seems like. I need to turn these edges and come on in on some of this width and quit mucking around, because dang, I'm at 18 minutes. I'm going to start again.